Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight. We've got a large audience today, as you can hear in the background. Appreciate that for joining us this evening. For the Town of Lake Cowichan's regular meeting of council, it's held April 22nd, 2025, starting at 5:02 p.m. It'll be held and transmitted electronically via the council chambers located at 39 South Shore Road, Lake Cowichan, BC. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge with gratitude that we are on the lands of the Subasset people, and we thank them for stewarding these lands for millennia. With that introduction of late items, I do have a couple. Yes, I do. Under correspondence J, a letter of support for Destination BC grant for Wide Glide Entertainment. I have forwarded those to the appropriate staff people. And also under new business, A, Cowichan Lake Forest Co-op appointments. Any other items to be added, Ms. Gill? Okay. Councillor Austin.
I'd just like to add either under let's see, under 6 for other reports, AVICC report. Would that be the best one to put that under?
Business arising?
Or under 6 other reports? Next page. Would that be all right?
Yeah, wherever you wish.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
With that, looking for a motion to accept the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Bomaka. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Now it's an opportunity for public input. This gives you an opportunity as the public to speak on anything at the agenda. If you wish to, if you would come to the podium and just state your name and what you would like to speak about tonight, what's on the agenda, feel free. Don't see anyone rushing up, so we will move forward with adoption of the minutes from the regular meeting of council held March 25th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Sandu, seconded by Councillor Austin. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. No business arising from that. Delegations and representations. It's that time of year again. I see some familiar faces, but also some new faces. I just want to let you know that we are friendly up here. We will not bite. This is probably my 22nd time meeting candidates in this venue. And it always amazes me how far you come from the initial presentation that you give to council all through the program. So kudos to the Ambassador Program for the great work that they do building community leaders. Thank you. So with that, it's the Cowichan Lake Ambassador Program, the candidates for 2025-2026. Just push the button.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bella Robinson, and I'm the 2024-2025 Cowichan Lake Second Princess.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taya Davis, and I'm the 2024 to 2025 Cowichan Lake Ambassador.
Sadly, our first princess, Riley Warren, could not make it tonight due to prior commitments. As well, we would like to thank the mayor and town council for always supporting our program.
And now we would like to introduce our 2025 Cowichan Lake candidates.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marley McQuinn. My sponsor is Remarks Generation, and my sponsor representative is Jennifer Allen. An interesting fact about myself is that I play badminton. I won third place in the third place in doubles for girls, and I've only played for about half a year.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Faith Smith, and my sponsor is the late Cowichan Kin. My sponsor representatives are Dana Newford and Kate Nahernick. A fun fact about myself is that I've traveled to 4 different countries and am heading to my 5th country, which is Japan, in the summer with the Otaki delegation.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Lydia Court, and my sponsor is the Benevolent Protective Order of Elks, Lodge 293. My sponsor representative is Pat Weaver. A fun fact about me is that I've been playing piano longer than I've known.
Hi, everybody. My name is Desiree Stump, and my sponsor is Ed's Coffee House, and my sponsor representative is Ed Ufnall. And a fun fact about myself is I've dirt biked for 3 years.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Janae Weir, and I'm the 2025 British Columbia Ambassador candidate of Cowichan Lake. The British Columbia Ambassador Program is open to anyone ages 17 to 24 that has previously placed in a youth local ambassador program, much like the Cowichan Lake Ambassador Program. I myself was the 2022 Cowichan Lake Lady of the Lake. The British Columbia Ambassador Program aims to empower youth through leadership, connection, education, and volunteerism. Unfortunately, the reigning 2024 British Columbia Ambassador of Cowichan Lake, Elise Nelson, could not be here tonight due to prior commitments with her post-secondary education final exam season. But she sends her kindest regards and thanks the town for all of their support to her throughout her candidacy and reign this past year.
Thank you very much, and the best of luck moving forward, all of you. Appreciate you attending tonight.
Be scary.
You've got the first one under your belt, so it'll all get better from here. Looking forward, we have some action items under correspondence. Cowichan Valley Regional District, the approval for the 2025 Cowichan Emergency Management Local Authority Agreement. There's a staff report there. It shows the agreement, and there's a resolution on there as well that we're looking for. Mr. Brown, do you need to speak to this, or are we quite fine with the report as it was presented?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report, I think, is self-explanatory. We've been working on the agreement with the CAOs of the regional district, and other municipalities have already signed on, and there's a couple more left to sign on, Lake Cowichan being one of them. So, as I said, it's a rather straightforward agreement, and other municipalities have already agreed to.
Thank you very much. So looking at that resolution, would anyone moved by Councillor Sandu? Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Frisbee. Any discussion on that? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Excuse me. Motion carries. We have another correspondence item. You may have to leave the room, Miss Weir. You'll be in a conflict of interest. No, I'm just joking. You would have to declare it yourself. It's from Ms. Weir on the BC Ambassador candidate for 2025, and it's a request for financial assistance. Your pleasure. Councillor Sandu.
Just through to the Director of Finance, what is our remaining funds for?
1,500 remaining.
Okay.
So I would suggest that we take that into consideration, not make a decision tonight on the correspondence, and perhaps do a further email straw poll to see if there is any appetite for the request presented by Ms. Weir. Would that be appropriate with council? Or if you wish to do it tonight, please put forward a motion to that effect.
I'd like to make a motion to support Janae Weir in the British Columbia Ambassador Program and give $300.
So it's moved to contribute $300 from our grant and aid program to Ms. Weir for the BC Ambassador Program. Do I have a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The chair has been overruled. That motion is carried. Thank you. The mayor chair. Also, Cowichan Lake Lady of the Lake Society, and that is also a request for financial assistance. Similar request. Your pleasure. Councillor Vomaka.
Can I ask our finance, what was the amount that we normally afforded to our Cowichan Lady of the Lake in previous years?
I don't recall, is it $200 or $300, Brooklyn? Yeah, I can look that up and bring it back for the next meeting or.
Councillor Austin.
Okay. I make the motion that we also give $300 to the Lady of the Lake Ambassador Program
From the Grant and Aid.
from the Grant and Aid.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Vomaka. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. And then there's a letter of support for Destination BC grant for Wide Glide Entertainment. I sent those letters to you by email. If there is any interest in that, I think it would be appropriate. There's template letters that could be sent on our behalf if you do support this. Doing some excellent work on engaging those who visit that establishment on the amenities within the Cowichan Lake and surrounding areas. Councillor Sandhu?
I just wonder if you could explain it to council, because reading the thing, I wasn't quite understanding why they're looking for this.
I think it's a program through Destination BC where various events can apply if they are an economic impact to the region and show the economic impact that that event provides to the surrounding area. And by giving out the information on the area, it may entice others to visit outside of the events. So they're looking at destination travel from events where they do the advertising. Clarified, I hope? Anyone interested in moving that? Moved by Councillor Sandhu to send a letter of support, seconded by Councillor Vomaka. Any questions or other comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries as well. Also, we have Philip Paris, and that's funding of ECOM. No one needs to speak to that. That's just an information item. Council and committee reports. Committee of the whole, I'll turn to Councillor Frisbee, please.
Minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting for April 8th. The committee recommended the Town of Lake Cowichan provide an increase to the bursary amounts from 1 500 bursary to 2 1,000 bursaries for a total of $2,000. The committee recommended the approval of a grant and aid for 2025 to the following: BC Conservation Foundation for 1,000 and Take a Hike Foundation for 500. The committee recommended approval of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department's incident report in the amount of $7,868.23 for March. The committee also recommended that staff be directed to work with the Cowichan Lake District Chamber of Commerce on its request for approval of local roads for 3 parade events in Lake Cowichan as outlined in their correspondence received on April 8th, 2025. And with that, I will move those minutes for approval.
We have a seconder on that, seconded by Councillor Austin. Any further discussion on those? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you, Councillor Frisbee. Cowichan Lake Recreation, anything, Councillor Sandhu?
Our next meeting is May 26th.
Thank you.
I believe I've got a report on that, haven't I? Because you were in it the last one.
I did report on it.
Oh, you reported on
Your
last. Okay,
absence.
thank you.
No worries. Vancouver Island Regional Library, Councillor Vomaka.
Thank you. There's an upcoming meeting over Zoom that will be mid-May.
Mid-May for you.
Yeah.
Advisory Planning Commission, Councillor Sandu.
I know, right? We held our last EPC meeting on March 27th. The commission members discussed short-term rentals specifically, and the difference of whole home short-term rentals versus hosted short-term rentals. And they talked about the CVRD's decision for some areas to opt in to this, and some that didn't. There was discussion on the code of conduct and training, and the contract planner will provide a binder of information for each member, including official community plan, zoning bylaws, and mapping. And our next meeting is this Thursday at 4 o'clock in Chambers.
Any questions on that, Councillor Frisbee?
Yeah, just through with the recommendation that we do opt into Bill 35 for short-term rentals. So that the APC are recommending that we opt in. Obviously, it will take into effect next May, but they are aware that we couldn't get any business license with our current setup. So they're recommending that basically we opt in and there'd be no Airbnbs in Lake Cowichan. Is that what they're saying?
I believe we have a report from the planner on some other options that may accommodate.
Yeah, I'm
concerns.
aware of those, but I'm trying to get feedback from the APC. Like, are they aware that if we do opt in, there's no Airbnbs at Lake Cowichan?
Well, in the last 2 meetings I've attended, that hasn't been addressed. So I can bring that forward to this Thursday's meeting.
Thank you for that. Anything else? Okay, moving forward, Community Forest Co-op. The Forest Co-op is meeting for its annual general meeting this Thursday, hence the appointments coming forward as a new business item. Aside from the significant contribution made to the Cowichan Auxiliary of $200,000 by the Forest Co-op, there's also going to be grants from various organizations within the West Cowichan area who have applied for funding for various projects throughout the region. Those will be vetted by the board tomorrow. A directive has been brought forward by the Finance Committee on the suggested amounts for each application, some of which were not successful. And moving forward, a new policy on applications on how funding can be allocated year to year is coming forward for the board's consideration. One of the concerns of the Forest Co-op was that some entities may be utilizing the Forest Co-op and other organizations as an ongoing funding opportunity for administration costs, et cetera. And that is not the intent of the grants within the Cowichan Lake Community Forest Cooperative. So with that, we will see what comes forward from that, and I will make those announcements once they are approved by the board. And no questions? Cowichan Valley Regional District. Bear with me. So these are from April 9th, 2025, Committee of the Whole. We had a report from Facilities and Transit, transit fare change implementation date, that it was changed to approve from implementation April 1st, 2025. It be deferred until August 31st, 2025. Also from Facilities and Transit Division, BC Low Carbon Fuel Standard Credit Aggregation Sale and Allocation. Say that twice. It was recommended to the board that staff pursue an agreement with the Community Energy Association for low carbon fuel standard credit aggregation and sales, and that the revenue earned through the sales of those credit be allocated to respective CBRD facilities where the charging stations are located. Also from Land Use Services Department, Regional Growth Strategy, that the Cowichan Valley Regional District initiate the preparation of a regional growth strategy applicable to all lands within the jurisdiction boundaries of the Cowichan Valley Regional District. That motion was sent to EASC for further discussion and is coming back to tomorrow's Committee of the Whole and board meeting for further discussion. Also on the board, I did have the Cowichan Lake Recreation Commission report that the recreation fees and charges policy ice arena be amendment to remove school out days from prime time, non-prime time, and mid-prime time rate definitions. Also from the committee of the whole, that the stage 2 engagement period for the CVRD Regional Parks and Trails Master Plan review and update project proceed in September 2025. And with that, that's your CVRD report. No questions? Watch the video. It was very entertaining. Community outreach team, Councillor Austin.
Thank you. The community outreach team meeting was Thursday, April 17th. Cameron Brown, who's the community navigator, chaired the meeting as Jocelyn was not available. We had Kim, the nurse from Island Health Outreach, and Conch, who is a new family youth support worker at Community Services. Cameron said the refresh market is very busy, as are the luncheons for 24 to 30 people on Mondays and Thursdays. They try to have food in the refresh market set up more like a store so folks can pick what they want. Things are a lot busier due to the transit strike, which we hope will be over shortly. Kim is still working on her own, but another nurse, Jen Dunn, will be working with her starting in June. The team serves the Malahat, Duncan, South Ladysmith, and Cowichan West, and they regularly visit the village and Warmland House, among other destinations. Kim mentioned that the new Cowichan Secondary School has a wellness center in conjunction with the Margaret Moss Health Unit for youth up to age 25. It will offer mental health support, harm reduction, STD information, etc. And they have a separate entrance for privacy. So that is really good news to have that in a school. Conch has only been here for about 3 weeks, but she has hit the ground running and already visited the LCS Rainbow Tea meetings and Paulson's Lunch Bunch. She's had experience with Strong Start, which you guys might all be interested in. And she hopes to set something up like that at Community Services. And she's got more programs as follows. Program for youth twice per week, which include life skills, budgeting, communication, very important when they're starting out. A youth advisory group, clubhouse drop-in for ages 9 to 12 Thursday afternoons, and evening adult groups per referrals, which include compassionate listening, communication skills, telling your story, mindfulness, and much more. And we can all use that at some time in our life. On Earth Day, which is today, she had a youth hike planned. Conch also wants to pair youth with seniors. So I mentioned the 50+ Activity Center and the president who she should connect with. She's going to do a lot more as she gets to know the community and what the needs are. She's fairly new here. I encourage her to visit the museum, the info center, and the chamber to learn about our area. Volunteer Week is this week. It's April 21st to 27th. So we need to thank all our wonderful volunteers within our community. And BC Youth Week is supposedly, I think the date was May 1st to 7th, with various activities at Community Services, Cowichan Lake Recreation, the library, and Ed's Coffee House is offering a youth open mic. I think that's comedy. I'm not sure. Could be singing. Anyway, thank you. It's a wonderful group of people that work really hard at Community Services for our community.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? See none, we'll move forward. Cowichan Watershed Board, Councillor Sandu.
Um,
I have nothing to report on our Cowichan, sorry.
Our Cowichan Watershed meeting for this Monday has been canceled, but the Cowichan Watershed Society is holding their AGM this Thursday at 9 a.m. in Duncan.
Thank you for that. Otaki Twinning, Councillor Austin, anything there?
Frisbee, but I will say one thing, that the 2026 group is having their first meeting on April 29th, just the parents and the students.
So I will change that to Councillor Frisbee. Did you have something there, Councillor Frisbee?
Yep, planning's underway for the group's Tokyo kind of side trip. They had a successful burger night fundraiser recently. They have a bottle drive on April 26th. I don't do public math. Is that Saturday or Sunday? Not sure. They've got a bottle drive on April 26th from 9:45 till 2 o'clock at the high school. They also have another one on May 31st. And they have an ongoing bake sale, the next one being May 9th at the high school. And
Have
that is,
you been practicing your Japanese?
I haven't. I've really been lacking.
You have not.
I can't use chopsticks either.
You're allowed to use your fingers for
Yes.
sushi. Everything is good there. I don't think we had informed you that you will be needed to do a couple of speeches. So if you could work with our secretary, I'm sure she can translate from your native tongue to Japanese and we'll move forward. But thank you very much for putting your name forward. Appreciate that. All kidding aside, we will move to staff reports. I'm sorry, ABICC update. Start with Councillor Austin, and then if anyone else wants to join in, Councillor Austin.
Okay, we recently attended three of us attended the AVICC, that's Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Conference in Nanaimo 2025. That's all the municipalities on our island and the Sunshine Coast. It's the annual general meeting of the association that municipalities pay into. Vancouver Island is a special region of BC with different issues in different parts of the island. As we know, North Island is different from South Island. South Island is different from Mid Island. We all have different wants, needs, and issues. As well as networking with our members from different communities, we also vote on important resolutions pertinent to coastal communities that then go on to the UBCM in September, and if ratified, to the provincial government. It was noted that resolutions drive policies, so they are very important. Reading through the various resolution also helps us to understand the concerns and needs of all the other coastal communities. On Friday, it is a bit long, but I'll try and talk quickly. Friday, the very enjoyable keynote address was a tag team of Keith Baldry and Vaughn Palmer, respected political journalists with BC Political Pulse. Both are on radio and TV weekly with information about current issues within the government and all the BC political parties. They gave some insight into the upcoming federal election. Saturday, our working breakfast was very interesting. It was redefining regional and community economic development towards prosperity for all. There was a panel of 4 providing information on resilience while struggling to survive these times, and diversification was the key. We had a resolution section next for a few hours, and then we had clinics that we attend, and we all attended different clinics, I believe. I attended the Urban Matters Solutions Through Collective Learning with an inclusive community where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. They had various different items going on, and we worked together with different groups. I learned that we can all do one small thing to cut our carbon footprint, and ours would be to have our organics go to Meads Creek rather than Bings Creek to be processed. But we would have to purchase a biovator, which was suggested to us many years ago. I called it a rotovator, but it's also a biovator. And then we could sell back the fertilizer to residents. The biovators that we looked at before were around $50,000. So again, that would be a budgetary item. The second clinic I went to that day was Community Housing Solutions. There were 3 presenters, a lawyer who presented legal aspects of government-owned housing, Kaylee Wiseman discussing non-market housing and nonprofits. And Kaylee's management team is now working with our Lakewood Manor project. I'm on that board. That's why I said our. Islands Trust was there with information on tiny homes on wheels. And they said we could use a temporary use permit for these if we had the land to put them in. They're not really mobile homes. They're a little bit different. And they maybe don't follow all the rules of the building code, but if it was temporary and it was necessary. And Sunday, Ellie Mina gave a 1.5-hour talk on meeting rules and responsible governance. We also had handouts with the information. It was very informative and refreshed items we learned in our post-election training sessions, which we all have to take. And we all need to be refreshed from time to time. We forget things. After a refreshment break, we had more resolutions, installation of the new executive that we all voted for, and Mayor Marianne Alto of Victoria announced that the 2026 AVICC will be in her city. Also, our UBCM is there this year. During our time at the conference, there was a trade show with various businesses and organizations, and talking to them is always informative. Among them was Ted Olnick from BC Hydro. We had a chat with him. And from folks from ICBC who are actually coming to LCS soon to talk about safe driving with youth. And they also want to work with seniors, so I gave them that information for our senior session here section here. There were many more. I wouldn't name them all. I think we had 20 or 30. I always learn a lot at these conferences, as in between sessions, there is always the networking with other elected officials and great discussions on current issues within the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from you, Councillor Womacka? I think,
Austin said it all.
I think she covered most of it.
So you could look.
Whenever I go to these conferences, I always try to go into sessions regarding our First Nations to better understand the UNDRIP and understand how to continually work with them as we have our Subos here. And like Councillor Austin said, even though I've been around for years, you do go to some of these sessions and you have a more engaging speaker who will bring new things to the table that you just go, wow, I didn't know that. And so one of them is the chair today is the mayor. And sometimes he may do something inappropriate the odd time. And we feel sometimes that we're not supposed to question the mayor. And so Ellie was one to say, no, it's the responsibility of all mayor and council to equally challenge each other's behavior to staff and to the public and to each other. So it was, we always learn something. It's quite a good thing to.
It was, and if I can just add one thing, I attended the Truth and Reconciliation event, and within there it showed the 93 resolutions within UNDRIP, and some of them particularly are focused at municipalities on accommodating that. So I've asked staff to look at those and send it to the APC to see whether or not those could be accommodated in our official community plan. So they are implemented in that document moving forward as we work collaboratively with our Subasset First Nation and surrounding nations around West Cowichan area. So looking forward to that discussion in the APC. That's a heads up, Ms. Reynolds, that's coming your way. And with that, I want to thank everyone for their contribution at AVICC. The networking is one of the best aspects for finding out that no matter how big or small you are within the association, we all have similar concerns and needs, and lack of funding is a major portion of that for the infrastructure that we do need for smart, sustainable growth. And with that smart, sustainable growth comment, that leads us to Ms. Reynolds, our contract planner, and that's on the item of short-term rentals.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Kelson. Sorry, not Kelson. Wrong mayor. Good evening. Bridget Reynolds here. So first off, short-term rentals. So as you're aware, in 2023, the province adopted the Short-Term Rental Accommodation Act, and it was tied in with Homes for People Action Plan. So it's all related to trying to address our housing issues across the province. And some of the regulations apply to the town of Lake Cowichan, but not all. And one of them is relating that comes into effect the beginning of May is the requirement that short-term rentals be hosted by the owner of the owner or resident of the residence. And so the APC has talked about this item, and one of the things that they were suggesting consideration of is that in the report, there's no real necessarily priority in these, but certainly the enforcement of illegal short-term rentals, that be increased should they be permitted, or if they're not permitted, if they're not permitted, that there be enforcement, and that council consider opting in for the principal residence requirement, and also another option being the use of temporary use permits for that use. And the OCP, it does speak to short-term rentals, and as part of the economic development section of the plan, recognizing the role that short-term rentals plays with the tourist economy in the town of Lake Cowichan. So the zoning bylaw does provide for a couple of types of short-term rentals. One is specifically short-term vacation rental. That's permitted really on one property, a site-specific zone, for one property on North Shore Drive, and then bed and breakfast, which is essentially a form of short-term rental, which must be owner occupied, and that's permitted in the R2 urban zone and also the R5B single detached duplex zone. So, and that affects Point Ideal. We don't really know the full extent of short-term rentals in and around the town. And I think with the new provincial regulation, the numbers have fluctuated. So right now, anybody who's operating a short-term rental or a bed and breakfast, if they are using any of the online platforms like Airbnb or VRBO or even Craigslist or any of those, the province is tracking those and then informing those operators that they need to register with the province. And in order to register with the province, they have to have a business license. So as noted in the report, the communities who are not regulated for the the principal residence requirement can choose to opt in, and a number of communities have done so, including a number of the CVRD electoral areas. And if council were to take that route to opt in, it wouldn't require any zoning amendments to be for the zoning bylaw to be amended to allow the use. And that would allow then the province could enforce that, essentially enforcing their regulation. So as noted, some of the smaller communities like District of Tofino or Village of Cumberland, they have opted in even though they don't, they don't meet the population threshold. So we have been, staff has been receiving inquiries related to business licenses, and they are informing people that, well, if the use is not permitted, then a business license cannot be issued. One of the APC members provided to APC, and also, there's a hyperlink in the report, in the staff report, that speaks to a report prepared by David Maxmuth from McGill University. And it's an interesting read and speaks to the effect of the principal residence requirement, what it's done in terms of rental rates, that it's actually, they're tracking that where this has been implemented, rental rates or rents are decreasing slightly. So let's see. So as far as adopting, I mean, the council has a number of options. Again, they can just receive the report for information. Council could opt to adopt a resolution to opt in to the provincial requirement, or could consider amending the zoning bylaw to clearly permit the short-term rental in residential zones in some way, shape, or form. And that could be with a principal residence requirement, or could consider amending the zoning bylaw to permit short-term rentals in residential zones with no principal residence requirements. Certainly taking on any of the options, it would be a good idea, I think, and I'm sure council is aware, to consult with the community and see what they have to say about it. Because it's an issue that is both positive influence on the community's economy and individual homeowners' ability to pay their mortgage, for example, but there's also other implications associated with short-term rentals, particularly where there isn't the principal residence requirement. So with that, I will leave it to you if you've got any questions.
I'm sure there may be a few questions. I will start. So I'm looking at the options, and for instance, option 1 is to accept the report for information and look at regulating a bylaw requiring zoning amendments for that property. Would that also accommodate TUPs within that? So if a property owner came forward with the option to have a short-term rental with no residence occupancy, could that be accommodated A, in a zoning application amendment, and B, under a TUP?
Yeah, it could be done either way. I mean, of course, a zoning amendment would then be a site-specific zone amendment for that property, and that would run with the property because you're zoning the land. Whereas a TUP, you can it's the short temporary use, so 3 years times 2, and you can require additional conditions as well to a temporary use permit.
Thank you for that. And I think the information portion is very important. So I hope this topic goes to May 5th for some further discussion with the public. But piggybacking on that, should be a zoning amendment or a temporary use permit, there would also have to be accommodated a business license of that particular property to accommodate the registration through those, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Vomaka.
Mine was just more clarification. So when we used to do it, people could come and I think we needed to rezone for them to get a bed and breakfast short-term rental. So if we don't opt in, it's just my clarification that we could go with a temporary use permit, not a rezoning application, as a site by site, and take in a temporary use with a business license. Is that my understanding?
Yep. Yes, people
So
could.
person comes to council and says, I want to have a short-term rental. This is where I live. And then we would look at that instead of opting in.
Yep, that is definitely an option.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Frisbee.
Yeah, I think this is a thorough report, and with this being on the agenda at the public meeting coming up, it would be great if we could get this report out to the public and have an agenda for it. And then we make decisions based on that. We do have some runway with even if we were to opt in, nothing would happen until next May. I think everyone's well versed on my thoughts on this. I think that, I don't know what provincial enforcement looks like. I don't think anyone knows what that means. But it would be great if we could get staff to come up with some guidelines, even with the temporary use permit. Like, it would be on a case-by-case basis, and there's no real guidelines on what we wanted. So we've got some runway, and we'd like to hear from the public as well. So I realize we don't like pushing things off, but we do have some time here.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we'll receive this for information. We'll bring this forward to the May 5th with perhaps some additional information that was requested by Councillor Frisbee on some of those suggestions. We will gauge the public interest. I have said for quite a number of years that we're lacking in accommodation in the West Cowichan, with no major hotel or other option for accommodating the summertime visitors. And we also know we have a housing shortage crisis. So trying to find a thin line in the middle that accommodates opportunities for people to visit and support the local businesses, but also accommodate the need for housing. So if we go that way, and then we'll move forward and look forward to the conversation on May 5th. Is that okay? Councillor Frisbee.
Yeah, just one more, and I know that we do think of Airbnbs during the summer months when we are busy, but sitting on I was on the Sports Tourism Grant Committee, and anytime a Lake Cowichan event comes up, it creates a lot of, they call it bed stays. So there's 208 created by a hockey event, and everyone on that board happily votes for that event to get money because they know that we can't accommodate that and that our accommodation spills over to Duncan and Chemainus. So it's both ways and it's year round that we have a shortage in both. So I really hope we come up with some interesting ways to deal with this.
Thank you very much. And just looking at other communities that perhaps look at the business license and how they are allocated through various sizes of communities. I know the price of a business license for short-term rentals fluctuates from community to community. So if we could have some idea of what that variance is between a community of our size and a similar one that may have gone the same route, if possible, for that as well.
Sure, I can report back. Unfortunately, though, I won't be here May 5th. I'm traveling and not back until the end of that week.
That's okay. I'll take the brunt of that one.
Okay.
They always like to beat me up at the public meetings anyway, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that. If you could provide that information, we'll at least afford
Sure.
the information to the people who attend. And
Okay.
this item is on the May 5th agenda. We will get a significant outpouring of concerned citizens coming forward. But thank you very much for that one. And I'm looking out into the audience at this young group who have been so quiet, and we've left them right to the end, Miss Reynolds. How could we have done that? Did I cut you off, Mr. Brown? Did you need to say anything?
I was just going to say, Mr. Mayor, that although Bridget's not available, I will be there May 5th, so I can, Ms. Reynolds and myself have been in consultation with the drafting of that report, so I can do my best to answer any questions that the public might have.
I will yield the floor to you, Mr. Brown. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn to Ms. Reynolds for the contract planner, the temporary use permit, which we just talked about. TUP 2025-01 at 89 South Shore Road to permit a child care facility in the lower unit. Ms. Reynolds, please.
Great, thank you. So yes, this is a temporary use permit. You may recall you saw this a number of years ago. The applicant applied for a temporary use permit in the same location for a child care facility in 2021. And then they discontinued because of COVID. They continue to operate the child care center across the street though, but the one at this property at 89 South Shore Road was discontinued. So again, the the property is zoned C3, so commercial zone. It doesn't permit childcare. However, across the street in the C1 zone properties, childcare is permitted. So the zoning bylaw allows provisions for temporary use permits. And as with any use that's proposed, there's parking requirements. And that is the case in this instance. They're required to have 6 parking stalls and 1 loading space. And the one thing of note with childcare facilities is that the Island Health Authority is the regulator of the licensing body of that use, and so they must issue the license. You know, they review the applications, and part of the provision, part of the application process is that the applicant must get sign off from the fire chief and the building inspector before VHA will issue a childcare license for this operator. They have been operating a childcare facility since 2015. The operator does have a current business license, so that would need to they would need to do a change of address for that. And certainly, I'm sure council's well aware of the lack of childcare spaces within the town and West Cowichan generally. And so the TUP the TUP would allow for, if approved, would allow for the addition of, or sorry, the maintaining of some very critical childcare spaces. So yeah, one of the things talked about with the applicant was the parking. Now, with the operator, only 3 of the staff drive, and those that do drive, they currently use some of the parking, the town parking, long-term parking, not the street parking, that's available. And they also, what they try to do is to avoid any congestion and just to fit the needs of the parents. Pick up and drop off of children is kind of staggered between different times. 6:30 to 9:30 and then 4 to 5:30. So there isn't a whole lot of congestion. The previous TUP had required that a dedicated drop-off and pickup spot be designated. And this recommendation recommends the same, or the staff report recommends the same. The zoning bylaw does provide council with an option to waive parking in buildings where there's a change of use, such as in this instance. And certainly in the OCP, the OCP recognizes that childcare facilities are a public benefit. So, it does provide some rationale to consider that waiving of the parking. The facility at 89 South Shore Road previously had some building infractions, and those have been addressed. And that's noted in the building permit file, and had received sign off by the fire chief and by the building inspector. So we did required notice as required by the Local Government Act, and we haven't received any comments. I don't think any came in today. And so the recommendation in the report is to approve this TUP and consider establishing, with consideration or recommendations, to establish the loading zone in front of 75 South Shore Road, and all the costs associated with that, with lines and on the road and sign installation, that be paid for by the applicant. And the supervisor of Public Works recommended a deposit be paid for the eventual removal of the signs and painting. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. So there is a recommendation there. Would anyone like to move that? Moved by Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Austin. Question through to our superintendent. Given that MOTI owns the road in front of said TUP, would you need permission for line painting in front of that through them?
In these cases, we do discuss it with them just to make sure they're good. They don't usually give us any objections, but we do have to discuss it with them.
Thank you for that. And another question, if I may, given that we have been presented our parking study, and this application came post study, is there any impacts on those recommendations coming from approving this?
I don't see any. There's going to be 2-hour parking or 1 hour in that area, but we'll see. I'm sure we can accommodate that.
Okay, any further questions from council? Councillor Vomaka.
I was just going to ask if you would forward it to the consultant that did the parking study, that this might be a change.
I have not, no.
For
We can do that there. Yeah, we can discuss that with them.
Okay.
I can get put in the report.
Depending on the vote.
And so the question to Bridget, though, is part of the recommendation, should it not read about the approval of the fire chief?
Well, that's required. Like Island Health requires that. Regardless, I mean, if the zoning permitted the use, the fire chief would have to sign off on it.
Okay, I did speak to the operator of the daycare today, and I told her that my concerns were of having 6 operators trying to get 30 children under the age of 5 out in a timely manner. I don't know if the building has been upgraded with sprinklers, how many emergency exits, et cetera. So that was just one of my questions today to you, was to have that guarantee that it was safety first. And also about there not being any playground space for, is there anything in the plans there in that area?
I'm unaware of any plans, but again, I guess I defer to Island Health as the licensor of this use. That they want to they're wanting to ensure that, you know, children are staying in places that are that have adequate play space and have adequate protection as far as egress and so on in an emergency.
Thank you.
Any more questions? So given that those concerns reside within Island Health, I think just accommodating the TUP, if we are okay with that, would be our step, and allowing them to do their investigative process post-approval or disapproval. So I am going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. The TUP is granted, and I want to thank you all for attending, and your children were very well behaved. Thank you. More well-behaved than I was. Thanks for attending. Okay. If you could hand it to our staff there, and well, we will guard it. We will guard it with our lives, or my life. So we'll just give a couple of minutes for the delegation, I'll say, to exit. And then again, thank you very much for joining us. Okay, we will bring the meeting back to order. Thank you again, Ms. Reynolds, Mr. Brown, for your input on that. We're moving on to bylaws. We have the Town of Lake Cowichan Financial Plan Bylaw number 1118-2025. And that may be read a first and second and third time. Ms. Gill, anything on that?
Yeah, Section 165, the community charter requires the local government to prepare and adopt a financial plan for the 5 years starting 2025. So it is here, and that must be passed before the annual property tax bylaw is adopted.
Do I have someone to move that for me? Moved by Counselor Frisbee, seconded by Counselor Austin. Any comments or questions? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. And the next bylaw is the Town of Lake Cowichan 2025 Annual Rates Bylaw, number 1119-2025. That may be read a first, second, and third time. Anything on that, Ms. Gill?
Yes, section 197 of the community charter requires a council to impose property taxes for the year by establishing a tax rates bylaw to meet the revenue requirements. That is the purpose of this bylaw, which must be passed before May 15th every year.
Thank you very much. Questions? Do I have a mover on that? Counselor Frisbee, seconded by Counselor Bomaka. Given that timeline, would there be a special meeting to approve these, adopt these? That's the intent. So there will be a special meeting. Look at your emails for that invitation, and we will accommodate that before May 15th.
May 13th.
May 13th, it'll be coming to you. Call the question, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. No new business. Actually, I missed one, didn't I? I'm looking for Cowichan Lake Forest Co-op appointments. I'm the representative for the town, and Councillor Bomaka is the alternate. If you are willing to keep that tag team, I would need a resolution to that effect, and then forward that to the Forest Co-op.
I'll move that our representations to the Cowichan Lake Forest Community Co-op is Mayor McGonigal, and his alternate would be Councillor Bomaka for 1 year. 1 year.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Austin, any discussion on that? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. So that concludes, except for, I'd just like to announce that aside from the election day on Monday, April 28th, it's also the National Day of Mourning for anyone who was hurt or injured in the workforce at the Forest Workers Memorial Park, and that happens April 28th, 2025 at 10 a.m. It's hosted by the Nanaimo, Duncan, and District Labor Council. If you're available, if you could attend, that would be greatly appreciated. It's always a somber event, just recognizing those who returned either hurt or did not return at all. So if you can, please do. And with that, I will turn to question period. And question period is limited to the items on the agenda. For anyone off-site, we've never had a phone call, but eventually we're going to get one. 250-749-3239. For anyone off-site, 250-749-3239. In-person attendees, if you have a question on the agenda items, you have 3 minutes per speaker. I see we only have one left. If you have a question, could you come to the podium and just state your name and then your question, please? We'll do our best to answer it.
My name is Doug Drummond. I'm a resident owner here. And I wanted to, I had a few comments that if you had the floor opened up later, that I'd like take a minute or two of your time to appraise you of. But a question concern on the agenda. What is the duration of a TUP?
I'm sorry, we should have announced that. It's a 3-year timeline for a temporary use permit.
Oh, yeah.
And then it would come back for reconsideration. And eventually, if you wish, you can enshrine it within that particular zone for that site specific. So you have an obligation under the TUP to ensure that they adhere to the regulations and stipulations that the town has put forward. If they do not, or something transpires, then it can be rescinded.
Real good. Thanks.
Well, appreciate that. And with that, we have an in-camera item. Under Section 92 of the Community Charter, it requires that before a meeting or part of a meeting is closed to the public, that council must state by resolution that the meeting is to be closed. And B, the basis on which the meeting is to be closed falls under the following section of the community charter. That's section 91E. It's land matters. Do I have a motion to go in camera? Moved by Councillor Vomaka, seconded by Councillor Frisbee. All in favor? Opposed, if any? We will recess for 5 minutes and then we will move into camera.